Ethan sat there, pretending to concentrate on the steam rising from his soup, but the truth was his attention kept drifting to the little boy now sitting across from him, swinging his legs, his tiny shoes barely brushing the floor as he hummed softly between spoonfuls. The mother was graceful even in exhaustion. Her eyes held the kind of tiredness that only came from choosing your child's needs over your own 1,000 times. Every single day. She looked up at Ethan with a soft, almost embarrassed smile, whispering, "Thank you again, you didn't have to do this." And Ethan, a man who had spent so many dinners listening to only his thoughts and the ticking of quiet restaurant clocks, found something warming in his chest, something unfamiliar. "It's nothing," he said quickly, but it wasn't nothing. If anything, it felt like everything. The boy, now more energetic after a few bites, looked at Ethan and grinned. "Do you eat alone every day, mister?" The innocent question struck deeper than any sharp knife ever could. Ethan opened his mouth, but his voice caught. What was he supposed to say? That success had given him everything but companionship? That the bigger his bank account grew, the emptier his nights felt? Instead, he forced a small smile. "Most days, yeah." The child frowned, shaking his head like it was the saddest thing in the world. "That's not good. Mom says nobody should eat alone. Food tastes sad then." The mother blushed, whispering the child's name softly as if to hush him, but Ethan laughed, genuinely. A sound he hadn't heard from himself in weeks. "Your mom sounds wise," he said, glancing at her again, noticing the way she looked down shyly, brushing a loose strand of hair back behind her ear. For a moment, silence settled, not uncomfortable, but peaceful, like they were three souls accidentally finding each other in a world too busy to notice small miracles. Ethan waved the waiter over and asked for a second plate. The waiter raised a brow. This was the first time Ethan had ever ordered extra company at his table. Soon, a warm plate arrived, and the mother hesitated like she didn't deserve it, like kindness was something she owed something back for. But Ethan gently pushed it forward. "Please, eat." And when she finally took the first bite, her eyes closed the way a person's eyes do when they're remembering what it feels like to be seen, to be human. "It's been a hard week," she whispered. Ethan nodded slowly. "I understand." And he did. More than she could ever guess. The boy began telling Ethan about school, about how he loved drawing rockets and dinosaurs, and Ethan found himself laughing again, lightly, freely, like an old rusted lock finally turning after years of stagnation. As they talked, the restaurant's soft lights reflected in Ethan's eyes, making them warmer than they had been in years. The mother watched him quietly sometimes, studying him like she couldn't understand why a stranger would suddenly care. And Ethan, sensing her curiosity, finally asked, "Do you come here often?" She shook her head. "No. Today was just luck." But Ethan felt something different. Was it luck, or a moment shaped by God, fate, chance, whatever force it was that brings people into our lives when they need each other most? And suddenly, he didn't want this moment to be temporary. It was strange. Minutes ago, he thought tonight would be like every other lonely dinner. Now, he was scared for it to end. He wanted to know their names, their story, their struggles. He wanted to hear the boy laugh again. He wanted to stop feeling like a ghost sitting at a table meant for two. The boy looked up, cheeks full, eyes bright. "Can we eat with you again someday?" And before the mother could shush him, Ethan spoke softly, sincerely, without hesitation. "I'd like that." The mother stared at him, stunned, unsure whether to trust the generosity of a stranger or run from it. But something told her this wasn't pity. This wasn't obligation. This was a man remembering what life felt like beyond quiet rooms and expensive plates. The world outside kept moving, but for that moment, they were three people sharing warmth in a place built for strangers. Ethan didn't know who they really were yet, but he knew one thing: tonight, destiny had taken a seat at his table. And maybe, just maybe, his life was about to change in ways he never imagined. The next morning, Ethan woke with an unfamiliar feeling in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years: anticipation. It was strange how one evening, one unexpected encounter, could rearrange the quiet furniture of a man's heart. He sat at the edge of his bed, rubbing his eyes, remembering the little boy's bright smile and the mother's gentle, grateful voice. He thought about how her hands trembled slightly when she picked up the spoon, as if she hadn't been treated kindly in a long time, and how the boy looked at life like it was still full of magic. That memory alone tugged at Ethan hard enough to make him stand up and head to his kitchen, but standing in the cold silence of his luxury apartment, he suddenly felt it again, the loneliness creeping in, thick and familiar, like fog rolling over an empty field. He exhaled, long and heavy. He didn't want to go back to that life. Not after tasting what it felt like to share a table again, to hear laughter instead of silence. That thought drove him to the same restaurant at lunch, hoping, just hoping, maybe they'd return. But they didn't. He asked the staff if they knew her name or where she worked, but they had nothing. She looked tired, the server said softly, like life hasn't been fair. Ethan nodded, feeling a strange ache in his chest. He didn't know why, but he had to see them again, not out of charity, but because they filled a missing space inside him, one he hadn't even realized existed. So he went searching. For hours he walked, scanning parks, bus stops, small bakeries, and playgrounds. He could have sent assistants, used influence, but something about searching himself felt personal, necessary, human. Hours passed until he finally found them, not in a fancy place, but outside a small convenience store, the boy holding a banana and the mother quietly counting change in her palm. She looked worried, defeated, like she had already calculated what she couldn't afford. When she looked up and saw him, shock flickered across her face. "Mr. Ethan?" she whispered, as if naming him might break the moment. The boy's eyes widened and he ran toward Ethan, hugging him without hesitation. "You came back," he cheered, his small voice bursting with trust so pure it shattered Ethan's walls like glass. The mother hurried over, embarrassed, apologizing, whispering that the boy shouldn't disturb him.